Well, joining us for more on this is an aviation analyst, Tayo Ojuri. It's good to have you join us on The World Now.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Of course, it's about time we opened the airs for, the international community to come into Nigeria. 5 months. How do you think we've been able to survive this COVID-19 pandemic, and what really are your concerns now that we've opened up the airspace?
Lots of questions there. But how we've survived in the last 5 months is lots of protocols, lots of things that evolved within the 5 months. We had lots of movement of flights, evacuation flights within the last 5 months that were either Nigerians coming in, stranded abroad, and now we have expatriates that had to leave for their countries as well. We had that actually filled that time. Now that life is coming to a new normal, we have 2 airports that have been opened for starters. We have a restriction of the number of passengers that can come into country to 1,280 passengers for starters. And that's with that, we actually, to your last part of your question, with that we're able to assess and appropriately maintain that this opening does not actually lead to increase of the spread of COVID-19, the pandemic. What we've seen in weeks past was part of the evacuation flights that came, the passengers, once they actually got back here, we've actually retested and we found out that they were actually positive thereafter. So how are we able to ensure that lesson learned is actually we take cognizance of lesson learned and ensure that this does not repeat itself, is ensure that the test is done 96 hours actually prior to departure. Upon arrival here, there's another test and there's a 7-day isolation period. All these initiatives are ensured to make sure that this doesn't spread further.
Very interesting. Of course, a lot of persons have been itching, to travel to some other places and see the world. But, one major concern, before we get to how people are reacting to this, is how the airlines, are reacting to this. They complain that they have low patronage because you're not taking maximum capacity now. You're being restricted to a certain number of passengers. How do you think airlines will survive even post-COVID-19?
This is just a start. This is not the new normal. What's going to happen, this is just a start to see how it pans out in the next 2-3 weeks. Okay. Once we actually start we're going to open up gradually. Even the number of airlines that can come now is restricted. It's just to ensure that we're able to address and take care of those coming. There's enough space, there's enough social distancing, there's enough COVID-19 protocols adherence. And once we actually have a good grasp of this process and procedures, we're able to expand it further. But don't forget, there are other underlying factors, such as other borders, other countries that have not opened their borders yet to Nigerians and for Nigerians to come in. So that's actually a mitigating factor for us to open our borders as well. So with the evolution of this process, we're going to see how this is going to pan out. But what is key, like the Deputy Governor highlighted, is for us to take that position of responsibility and every passenger to ensure compliance.
Well, how will this affect the airlines because of low patronage? We've had a lot of persons in the airline sector, in the aviation sector, complain about how the COVID-19 pandemic has, brought the sector to a standstill. So how quick do you think the takeoff will be?
I think the takeoff actually would be quick. What we're going to see in the next 2 to 3 weeks will be lots of families have been that stayed apart. That gives them the opportunity to move. September is school year across actually opening of schools. That's another driver. We are finding out that gradually the reality actually isn't before us. We have to open up gradually and with so much caution for social and economic activities. So yes, the airlines are not going to make money immediately. Nobody, it's not just the airline industry, it's every facet of human endeavor. Nobody's going to make money, but eventually they're going to open up gradually. We've simulated this actually and forecasted this process. We're not seeing aviation coming back to pre COVID-19 numbers, which is 2019 numbers, until 2024.
Whoa.
Yes, really.
2024. But looking at what airlines should be doing when it comes to passenger apathy, so you have some persons will say that they're not ready to travel yet because they're scared of COVID-19. Yes. It was good, you know, when we had to travel just within Nigeria because the cases were quite minimal. But now that you have to travel to countries that are experiencing, you know, the worst, for instance, the United States, yes. How do you think airlines can actually combat or tackle passenger apathy?
The good thing is there's a consolidated process approach. It's a science-based approach, and it's a layered approach that ICAO, International Civil Aviation Authority Organization, has initiated. It's called the Aviation Startup Process. IATA, Council, all the aviation and sovereign countries actually integrated into that process. What this does for us is to ensure that there's a single process for reopening up. This reassures the passenger, to address the passenger apathy, that it is safe to fly and aviation is not a vessel for a conduit for the spread of COVID-19. How have we done that, or how do we do that? Is to ensure the basic hygiene, the social distancing protocols are observed, masks for travelers. Then over and beyond that, the sanitation of the aircraft itself, the crew and the group crew, the flight crew, the ground crew, and all those ancillary service providers are trained with the COVID-19 procedures, which helps them actually ensure that the spread is mitigated.
So one question that I'd like to ask is, looking at the aviation sector, especially when you get to the airport, you know, you were there this morning, so you understand what I'm saying. So while you're there, you know, we have minimal staff. People are concerned about job losses.
Yes.
So how do you think the country can actually mitigate this?
What we've seen, and this is not a Nigerian thing, but let's domesticate the peculiarities of our sector.
Own country.
Yeah, we've seen that it's going to affect lots of sectors. And what we've seen in other climes is we've seen the government guarantee the airlines, guarantee the service providers. We've seen soft loans being given out, and we've seen those some policies to help them alleviate these challenges. We've seen the CARES Act in particular in the United States, where it's actually up to March 2021. There's an extension of 25 billion to the airlines to be able to take care of the palliatives towards the staff payment palliative. We've seen Lufthansa get a 9.9 billion euro support from the government. We've seen KLM, Air France get 6 billion. So it's from the government. So it's for government to help the airline and aviation sector players with soft loans, with guarantees, which will help them stabilize during this period. And when things pick up, they're able to repay this, because for a fact, aviation is an economic driver, is a critical economic driver.
Yeah, so one last question for you. So we know that aviation sector, you know, is tied to the tourism sector.
Yes, it is.
And so a lot of persons are saying that why don't we just explore the staycation instead of going on vacation to, you know, other countries? So how do you think the aviation sector will affect the tourism sector? Are we going to see a bounce back, just like you said, aviation sector will be bouncing back, let's say in 2024. Are we going to see that in the tourism sector?
We're going to see that in the tourism, and that's been optimistic. What we've seen, lots of drivers, it's not just a one-way road. We've seen the dollar that affects travel.
Yeah.
We've seen another determinant of travel, either way, is security. What will drive staycation, in our sense, is those places we need. If we have to go to the north or northeast, there's a bit of security concerns there. So if I need to go to Badagry, there's an issue of infrastructure with the roads. Yeah. So all these underlying factors are actually a determinant to our drive towards staycation. But having said that, it's not just putting everything down. There's still lots of places. If you look at Epe is a very good access to actually experience staycation. Yeah. And you're going to Badon Ondo. And with that, gradually, when people actually appreciate that And with the great weather and good food, organic food, people are able to optimize and enjoy that scenario rather than traveling abroad.
Yeah, of course. Less trouble, less documents to submit.
Exactly.
Aviation analyst, thank you so much. Tayo, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
It's always a pleasure. Make sure you fly soon, please.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much. Well, you